Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of those of you who are listening. Um, Welcome to Wellness Talks. Today we have a very interesting guest from Asia, but actually not originally from Asia, Mr. L. But I will be introducing him in a moment, and he can explain to everybody a little bit about himself. My name is Hilton. I am the general manager of Alba Wellness Valley in central Vietnam, Hue. And I am also the ambassador of World Wellness Weekend. And that's actually how Mr. L and I met because 2 years ago, you did a talk for us in the World Wellness Weekend when we were all online. So
That's right.
anyway, yeah, correct. So I'm not going to talk too much because this is not about me. This is about our special visitor. So with no further ado, I will hand over to Mr. L, and please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Elton. Hi, everybody. So I was from France originally, but I lived in several different countries. I lived in Canada and India, Malaysia, Philippines, and I'm settling in Taiwan for the last 6 years. So I like it here. And my main work is to help people heal from all sorts of physical and emotional problems. But the physical problems very often come from emotions. So people suffer from cancer, stress, chronic fatigue, all sorts of chronic disease and pain in their back. But it's very often related to something that happened in their past. So I compare it to holding something in your hands. If I hold this cup in my hand, no pain. But if I hold it for 10 years, my hand is going to be crippled. So people hang on to emotions for so long, but it actually damages their physical body. And it's well known in Chinese medicine that anger will damage your liver, fear will damage your kidneys, and betrayal will damage your heart, things like that. So our organs will suffer from our emotions. And when we have a strong emotion, there's a chain reaction. The first thing that changes is our breath. So our breath gets shallow. Just like when you watch a scary movie, you hold your breath and you relax, but you only hold your breath for like a couple of minutes maximum. But when you are in constant fear or in constant anger, you hold your breath all the time. So, or a very long time, sometimes for years. So people will suffer from a lack of oxygen because we have 37 trillion cells in our body. That's a lot of them. And they all need oxygen to live. So when people are starving themselves of oxygen unconsciously because of an emotion, their body is going to suffer. So I always check people's breath when I start a healing session, see how they breathe, see how shallow their breath is. And also the tension in their face, because the face will tell you a lot of things like body language. And during the session, as we reprogram the emotion that caused the problem, I can see the breath changing. I see the face relaxing. I see the shoulders tension relaxing. So it's quite magical to see this happening in a course of 1 or 2 hours. So because of COVID, I've been doing a lot of online session, and it's just as good as the live session. I have people from all over the place in Africa, Europe, North America, and the result is the same. So only one session usually, and we can get back to normal, find their health back.
Wow. Wow. So, whoa, that's an introduction. That's
So,
incredible. I'm just sitting here going, exactly. I get that. I mean, if we look at the people around us and we look at obviously here in the resort, in the wellness segment, people just don't know how to relax. People don't know how to breathe. And on our level, I just say to people, stop, take a deep breath and relax, just slow down. But you taking it to a completely different level. And everything you said makes so much sense because, we just lose sight of the way we actually work, the way we eat, the way we do activities, everything in life, we lose sight of how it actually should be naturally. And these lead to problems. We try to evolve into our environment, but actually it lands up with illness. So, wow, that's a phenomenal introduction. And now I think we definitely get an idea about what you're doing. But if I can step back a little bit and ask you your history a little bit, because I remember when we spoke, this is not what you used to do. When you were living back in France, you actually studied something completely different. Maybe you can share a little bit about it, and then how you came into this.
Yeah, when I started university, I was 17, and I studied human sciences for 2 years. And I didn't quite like it, so I switched to art, and I became a student of art at the École des Beaux-Arts in France, and then in Canada when I moved to Canada. And I studied art for 6 years and became not a very well-known artist, but a known artist in the west coast of Canada and teaching art also. But I always was fascinated by the psychology of people and how people are affected by other people's behavior. So it started with my parents because they were fighting a lot. And my brother was fighting with my parents. So I thought there's some kind of dysfunction here. So I started to read books of psychology and psychoanalysis when I was 13 years old to try and understand what's going on. And at one point, I thought I would become a psychologist, but I didn't study this at school. And it's really in the last 20 years that I got really interested again by an alternative method of healing. I used to be sick every winter. In my childhood, I was very, very sick very often. But now in the last 23 years, I've only been sick once, and it was COVID, which lasted 2 days and was gone. But I tested positive and I was sick for 2 days and it was gone. So I'm in much better health now than I was 23 years ago. And it's thanks to learning about my own health and also other methods. And one method in particular was emotion reprogramming, which I learned in Canada with a doctor called Dr. Boehner. And that was really a life-changing thing for me because I've been able to help so many people with this method. And I've been teaching it in workshops in different countries. And it's a very simple method. And when I use it, it creates such fast changes because it's looking for the cause of the problem, not the symptom. So often you go to the doctor and you say, oh, I have a headache, so you give you pills for the headache. And you say, I can't sleep, so you give you pills for the sleep. And you say, I have a stomachache, you pills for the stomach. And you end up with half a dozen pills very quickly. And then you are dependent on these pills all your life. And the cause of the problem has never been fixed. Just like if you see water coming from your ceiling onto your floor, you can put as many buckets on the floor as you want. As long as you don't fix the roof, you're still going to have water on your floor. So when you sit with this approach, what you really have to find what's causing the imbalance in your life, then you can start to make permanent changes. And sometimes these emotions are back to birth, to the first 2 years of life.
You may have not studied psychology, but I definitely think you understand it a lot more than some of the people who have studied it. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, in life, not just with psychology, but in life, sometimes what you learn in a book or what you learn in a lecture room and the reality of life are not always the same. It's actually rare.
That's true.
And
Yes.
that even goes for engineering in practical experience and things like that.
Yeah.
I love the examples that you use of holding the cup and your arm. It's fine. It's not a problem. You can do it. But if you hold it forever, you're going to drop the cup. And then again,
right.
The example you just gave of the roof leaking. Yes, sure, you can cover the drip and catch the water, but it's just going to continue dripping. And at some stage, the roof will collapse. I think that really sums up the fact that we don't know we have an issue and it just gets completely bad. So on that line, maybe you can tell our listeners what to look for. Why do we need to see Mr. L? What would be the red flags?
Well, the big difference it makes in people is to be aware of their breathing, aware of their emotion, and knowing that they can do something about it. Lately, I was talking to my wife about this, and I say, when you have a strong emotion inside you, it's a bit like milk boiling on a stove. And you have very little time to react, to turn the heat off or move the milk away. And it's a bit the same thing when you have a strong emotion coming inside you, because first your breath is going to change, and then you're going to have a change in your endocrine system. It's going to change your hormone production. For example, anger or fear will create a strong discharge of adrenaline, and it will go into your bloodstream. And then your bloodstream is charged with this hormone, which is a defense mechanism, but it can create a lot of damage too. So people get violent, people get to do things they regret later on because of a strong emotion, and they are not in control of their emotion. But if you see it, but you have very little time to react, take a deep breath, calm down, and do some emotion reprogramming. It's what I teach people how to do. And they can do that in just a few minutes, and then it's changing their lives because they are consciously aware of their emotions and they know they can do something about it.
Wow. So then what would you say? Okay, so for example, I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling sad. I've lost confidence. I'm just not feeling correct. What should I do?
Yeah. So the first question I usually ask any patient is, what is your self-love between 0 and 10? And the answer will give me a clue on their emotional health and also their physical health, because they are codependent. So if somebody says to me, my self-love is about 9 out of 10, yeah, pretty good. So 8, 9 is really good. But when they start to say 4 or 5, there are some issues. Why is it that they can't love themselves? And people who are usually in a lower number between like 0 and 5 will tend to look for a partner who also has a low self-love. So when they are together, they seem okay. But as soon as they are apart, they fall apart because they need each other so much to be able to love themselves. So they are codependent, and then their stories usually end up not so well. And then when people say they have like a 2 or 3 self-love, to me, it's a red flag that they are probably close to depression. And 0 and 1, they are suicidal.
Wow.
So our self-love is very important. So first, after having this question answered, I will start to ask other questions, like being a detective for questioning and finding what is the cause of the problem. So I will ask them about their birth, about their childhood, about any traumas they had in their life. And we usually find the cause very quickly. And sometimes just asking a question can trigger an emotional reaction. Like people cry a lot when I do my sessions. And sometimes I will ask, how do you love your parents? And they start crying. And why do you cry? What's so sad about? Oh, because they split when I was 5 years old. See? And then how did you feel about it? Oh, I felt responsible. Oh, so you feel that you split because of you? Yes. Why do you think that? So it triggers a whole domino effect of causes. And it's fascinating work because very quickly we can find the cause and change it.
So how do you change it? What do you tell them to do besides breathing?
Okay, so the big change is doing what's called an emotion reprogramming. So first we acknowledge the problem. Like for example, although I have been betrayed by my partner and created a lot of pain and soreness in my heart. And despite this, I totally love and accept myself. And I know the universe loves me unconditionally. So that's the acknowledgement of the problem. The second part, after a big breath, is to reprogram what happened. So we say, although this happened, I choose to let go of the hurt created by the betrayal, the pain, the sadness, the anger. But at the whole time we do that, we do this tapping here. And this tapping is very magical because it stimulates the brain left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. And when we do that, we can actually talk to the subconscious brain, to the right side of the brain. And this is where all our emotions and our memories are stored. So when you have an emotion that's caused, for example, by a little accident, like you are 2 years old and a dog bites you, and you get a lot of pain. Your memory and your emotion are, dogs are dangerous. Dogs bite, dogs they cause pain. So all your life you are going to be afraid of dogs. And I had several clients who are afraid of dogs, like very afraid, like they won't even go close to a dog. And if we take this file from the brain and say, okay, I'm afraid of dog because this happened, and then you separate the memory from the emotion. So you can remember what happens without the emotion. And it's quite magical. I remember a woman who was so afraid of dogs, she had to hide behind somebody or go inside a store if there was a dog on the street. And after the reprogramming, I said to her, let's go outside and find out some dogs. And we saw 3 different dogs, small ones, big ones. And she said, it's so weird, I don't feel this fear anymore. So we can see instant results, so it's like a very rewarding work because I can see the results. Of course, I always talk to people about their diet, their habits, because if people say to me, I can't sleep, and I said, do you eat before you sleep? Oh, yeah, you have a midnight snack, some wine and cheese. So that's a physical cause that's going to stop you from sleeping. But if they have, trouble with their liver, I would ask them about, do they drink a lot of alcohol, or do they have a lot of anger? What's triggering the pain in the liver? So sometimes it's a physical cause, and sadness, sadness and depression can also be caused by a lack of vitamin D.
So do you bring into, you mentioned there a little bit about nutrition and eating. So is that a very important part of your consultations as well? Because obviously if people
Yes.
are not well, they do not necessarily take care of themselves, and that's many different aspects.
Yeah. And often people have a diet that corresponds to their emotional state. So people who are in depression sometimes will try to compensate what's causing the depression by feeding themselves the wrong food. So they want to fill up a hole inside themselves, basically.
Right.
And they use food instead of what they really need, which is probably some love from other people or some good relationships. But first, the relationship with themselves. It's almost a sabotage of your own body to eat junk food.
May I ask you a little bit more information about the tapping? Because I remember last time we spoke about that, and that you mentioned that quickly, but I know there's fascinating results from that. What's the story? A little bit more detail, if possible.
Okay, so this psychiatrist I studied with, Dr. Bernard, he was very disappointed to have to prescribe drugs all the time to people. So he started to look at other methods, and he studied several other methods, and then he came up with his own method. And it's this alternate tapping. And it really stimulates the brain left. I mean, you can see it in a clinical trial. It stimulates the brain left, right, left, right. So this way you can access the right side of the brain. If you just do an affirmation, it stays on the left side. So you can't make any changes to the right side. So that's the key element to this method. It's simple and it really works.
Oh, okay. So it's got nothing to do with the tapping that we do in like the relaxation technique.
Well, this is more for the muscles, the relaxation technique.
Okay.
I mean, some good tapping to do that stimulates your meridians, like they do in Tai Chi and Qigong. But this is a little different. This is really to be able to access the right brain without hypnosis.
Okay. So if I may ask, besides helping people and identifying problems and finding solutions, you personally, how do you live a wellness life, a well-being, a happy life? What are your secrets?
Well, to have a balanced diet, and I'm vegetarian, but I eat eggs and cheese, but never meat or fish. And that's something that came up in the last 20 years too. And also try to do some physical exercise every day, spend some time in the sun, and be aware of my breathing and my emotions. And sometimes, an emotion can come so suddenly, you have to react really fast. I had an example to give you when I was skiing in Whistler with my children, and I got into a slope with them that was way too difficult for me. They're much better skier than me. And it was very steep. And I thought, okay, I'll try. When I tried, I figured it was not even snow, it was ice. So I got really scared. And I couldn't turn. I never tried on each side. And I was having a really hard time turning. So I thought, okay, I felt fear in my body and I could feel myself shaking. And it came very quickly because this fear came very fast. So I thought I have to stop and reprogram my fear. So I used my butt to stop. It took me 50 meters probably. But I was in the snow, put my sticks in the ice, and I started to reprogram myself. I said, although I feel fear in my body and my mind about getting down this slope, and then I said, I have to let go of this fear in order to be able to go down safely. So I'm asking my body and my mind to relax and be safe. And within 5 minutes, I was totally calm. I got back up and I went down, and I was fine. I didn't have a fear. If I kept the fear, maybe I wouldn't be here today because I would have ended up in the trees.
Wow.
So this is an example how this method can really change your emotions very quickly, and then also the emotion that created the shaking inside me, which made me unable to control my muscles to ski.
Wow, very interesting.
So it can be a life-saving.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, I'm from Africa, so when it comes to skiing, I'm definitely not the right person to be talking to. When I went skiing a couple of years ago, it was disastrous. Without the ice, just the snow. So yeah, it's a strange business. Yeah, go ahead.
They do skiing in Africa or in the desert. They ski on sand.
Correct.
It's a new trend now.
Yeah, I've never tried the sand skiing, but I think falling in the sand would definitely be less painful than falling on snow.
Well, it depends on which snow.
It depends on the
snow
speed.
can be hard as rock.
Yeah.
And some snow can be very soft like cotton.
Correct. So I think something you touched on in the beginning, because we're running out of time, is COVID. I mean, we don't talk about it much anymore, and it's really become not the big conversation. But myself personally, where I'm quite involved in the wellness industry, I've seen this massive boost and boom in people's realization towards their health. I mean, everyone's life for the last 100 years, no one wants to be sick. No one wants to die. But there's definitely been this awareness and this growth because people were dying, people got sick, people could not control themselves, people are overweight, not doing exercises, eating badly, not understanding their mental health. So if you were to say to people, right, make a change today and take control of yourself and make yourself a happier and healthier person, maybe you could give a few small recommendations that, life-changing experiences that they don't have to get on a plane and travel to Taiwan to speak with you. Well, no, you said you do it online as well. But what would you recommend to people?
Well, first thing is to be aware of your breath and your emotions, and be watchful of your diet, what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat. And by changing your breath, you can change your health, because you can't say to your stomach or your liver to stop or to go, but you can say that to your breath. And when you change your breath, you can actually enhance the wellness in any part of your body. And I teach this in a meditation too, where you can visualize your breath getting inside your body and healing cells in your body, because every cell needs the oxygen. So shallow breathing is a red flag. Stress and worriness is a red flag too. Because when you worry too much about something, it's something that's happening in your thoughts. So you let go of your body and you're not paying attention to your body, and your body suffers from it.
I think it's very important. We won't go into detail now, but while you were saying that, I was thinking about so many people taking medication and finding the quick fix to not feeling well. And in reality, go outside, take off your shoes, ground yourself, breathe, relax is so beneficial towards mental health and even physical health. Yet, people still look for the quick solution in terms of medication and things like that. So I think it's very important people understand that you are your own doctor. You can take control.
True,
yeah. No one learns how
yes.
to breathe it naturally. And
yes, but we have been taught to believe the doctors. We have been believed that, oh, you have something wrong, you go and see a doctor.
Correct.
Personally, I say, if you have something wrong, you have to.
The difference between Eastern and Western cultures is very much like you just said. I'm ill, I go and see a doctor and I consult a doctor. Whereas in Eastern tradition, historically, there are other ways and other methods before going to see the doctor. Not saying one's right and not saying one's wrong, but there is more out there, and there's fantastic results. So, you know, it's interesting to see. Now, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but this has been incredibly fascinating and mind-opening for myself, because I personally, I do breathe and I like to relax, but I lose sight of the power of breathing and how it can really be beneficial to you. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And thank you for sharing your insights. On this clip below, we have all your contact information. So we will share that with everybody. So I hope you're not inundated with emails and questions, but I'm sure people can contact you and learn more if they need, or actually consult with you. So again, thank you very, very much for speaking with us today and sharing this information with us. And yes, I hope everyone stays happy and healthy. And remember that World Wellness Weekend is on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of September, 2023, this year. So please go to our webpage and sign up, join an activity somewhere, or do an activity yourself. We have one goal, and that is wellness for all and wellness by all. So thank you very much, Al. Thank you for being with us today. And hope to speak to you more often, because we kind of been apart for quite some time now. So that would be amazing.
Well, thank you. It was nice to see you again, Elton. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.